Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great guys. Okay, thank you so much for joining on a weekend. I know everyone is locked up in your homes, enjoying your weekend. We just thought let's try to make it more productive for everyone so that we can remove those boredom. So today we are going to talking about lightning out, which is basically used for exposing lightning components to external websites or let's say external external websites, or it could be external applications, or it could be even our Visualforce page. Okay, it says my voice is too low. Am I audible now? Just a minute, guys. Let me check my settings.
Yes, you are audible to us.
Yeah, I can hear you properly.
You can hear me, right? Okay.
Yes.
Fine. So this is a forward-looking statement. I'm sure you guys have gone through this many million times when you have attended a Salesforce webinar or a Salesforce event or meetups. It's just a statement that don't make any decisions out of this training. Please go through documents before you develop anything or make any changes in your work. So who are we? So the guy on the left who is not interested in looking at you, he's looking somewhere else, is Sanket Kumar, who is your organizer. Sanket, you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
I think they are aware of me. You can introduce yourself, Shyam.
Okay, that's great. I know you're a famous guy, so yeah. So for people who don't know me, my name is Shyam Nair. I'm a solution architect working for a smart home technology company based out of US. I'm currently working from Bangalore. I'm also a lightning champion since a year. I think both Sanket and me were part of the same batch, right, Sanket?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have been lightning champions since a year now, evangelizing lightning, blogging about it, doing sessions for others, helping them to spread word about lightning and its advantages. I've been working in Salesforce ecosystem for almost 10 years now, and I have been working on Lightning since 2016, I would say. So yeah, and I'm based out of Bangalore, so that's about me. So the first and foremost thing I think you guys also needs to do during the session is basically spread the word, let the world know about our sessions and about especially about Sunday with LWC, which is an event conducted by Sanket. It's an initiative started by Sanket to train others on Lightning, conduct sessions on every Sunday, which is a great initiative. So as you're learning, I recommend you to take screenshots and share about it on Twitter. Use these 3 hashtags if possible. And also follow us on Twitter. I have also mentioned the Twitter handle here on this page. For more announcement, whenever we are blogging, we'll post the link on our Twitter. If there is any sessions happening in future, Sanket will be definitely informing it in advance. So please follow us on Twitter. So yeah, that's about it. So now before we start this today's training, I'm keeping some assumptions, and I'm assuming that all of you know how to build a Lightning component or a Lightning web component. All of you know how to create an Apex class, or you are aware of how to create a Visualforce page. You know how these two things work. And you also know SFDX, which is not compulsory, because the reason why I mentioned is because when I'm doing a demo, I will be using Visual Studio Code along with the Salesforce DX extension pack, so that it will help us to deploy changes that we make directly to our org without deploying it again and again. So I hope you guys know all these. Is there anyone who doesn't know any one of these topics? I hope everyone is aware of how to build a Lightning component and everything, right? Okay, I'm taking it as an S. So for today's agenda, this is what we are going to cover about. We are going to talk about what is Lightning Out, and then we are going to see how we can load Lightning components to a Visualforce page, which has 3 steps, which is creating a Lightning dependency app, and then you basically load the Lightning component for Visualforce JavaScript library to your page, and then how you create that component on the Visualforce page to display your Lightning component. And then, of course, we'll be doing a short demo to give you an idea how this is done in real time. So that's what we're going to do today. So to start with, what is Lightning Out? It's basically a feature which provided by Salesforce, which helps us to extend Lightning apps and basically act as an bridge between bridge to surface Lightning components to any report web containers. So when I say web containers, it could be anything. So it could be an external site like, let's say, SAP or SharePoint, or even your websites that you build for your organizations. It could be like a hybrid mobile app built out of, Android SDK or iOS, and you want to show a Lightning component on that mobile application, you can do that. It could be also used where you have let's say a Node.js application posted in Heroku, and you want to display your Lightning component over there. You can use Lightning Out there as well. And of course, let's say you have a Lightning component and your org is still in Classic, and you want to display your Lightning component on Visualforce page, which either will be used in your standard, Salesforce org, or it could be in a public site. If you want to display your Lightning component, you can use Lightning Out and display that Lightning component on your Visualforce page. And that's what we are going to focus today on. Our focus area would be on how to display Lightning components on a Visualforce page. Now, how do you load Lightning components on Visualforce page? This basically has 3 steps. So the first step is basically to create a Lightning app that make a reference to the Lightning dependency app. And the second step is basically you create a Visualforce page and add Apex include Lightning tag to load Visualforce JavaScript library to your page. And then thirdly, you will be writing a JavaScript function to create a component on the page, which will call the Lightning component, and that is done using the lightning.createComponent function. So just 3 simple steps. It's not complicated. It's very easy. And I'll be elaborating these 3 steps more on coming slides. Any questions so far? Or else we can keep the questions at the end of the session. I hope you guys can hear me, right? I mean, there's dead silence.
Yes. No. It's fine.
Okay.
Just understanding, nothing else.
Okay, fine. So the first step to basically bring a Lightning component to a Visualforce page is to create a Lightning dependency app. It's basically a simple Lightning app that you build on your Salesforce org. It's just that you extend something known as LTNG out app, which is Lightning out app extension, and you make sure that the application is accessible global so that everyone can access it. And then in that, you basically create a dependency component which will link to your actual Lightning component. So if you see here, I hope you can see my mouse cursor. So this is where this is tag. This is the extension that you need to use to make your Lightning application a Lightning out app or a dependency app, and you put the access level as global. Now you might be wondering what is this implements. So this is basically used. Let's say if you have a scenario where you want to expose your Visualforce page on a public site, and on your Visualforce page you're basically calling a Lightning component, then you have to implement Lightning. Not to snippet from an example that I had, so that's why it is mentioned over there. Now this is very important. This Aura dependency tag. This is where you mention the name of your component. Now, since the component and Visualforce page is on the same org, that's why I'm using C. Otherwise, that will be basically your namespace. So it can be namespace of your org, it can be namespace of your managed package. This will be required if you're exposing your Lightning component on an external website or external application. So this is the basic syntax. It's just 3 lines of code, and this is how you make your Lightning application accessible for to be accessed in external sites or Visualforce page. Now the second step is where
Just one question.
Sure.
The last one, right?
Go ahead.
You're including dependency and calling a Lightning component. That can be both, right? Or a component or a LWC.
Yes, it can be Aura component or it can be a LWC component.
Okay.
Or Lightning Web component. It could be both. Okay. So this is just an example. I mean, I will be showing you how to call both Lightning and Lightning component and a Lightning web component on a Visualforce page. So you will understand it better over there during the demo. Now the second step is basically to load the JavaScript file for the Lightning components for Visualforce page. It's a JavaScript file that we need to load. And in order to do that, what you need to do is when you create a Visualforce page, you just have to put a tag that says apex include Lightning. So this will help us to load all the necessary JavaScript files, which is required to load a Lightning component on your Visualforce page. Just a very simple tag. So this is what you have to start with. This is how you start when you create a Visualforce page. Now, thirdly, and the very last step that we need to do is to basically create the component on the page, which will have 2 steps, two things that you need to do. So the first and foremost thing is to use lightning.use tag, a lightning.use function. This is basically a Lightning JavaScript method, where you basically pass the name of the Lightning dependency app that you created on your first step, right? So you pass there. So if you see the syntax, the first parameter is basically the name of the app. Now, when you're giving the name of the app, it basically would be namespace dot the name of the app. So namespace is basically, it could be C, or it could be the namespace of your org, or it could be the namespace of your managed package. Now, if your Lightning component and Visualforce page is part of the same org, then you just have to mention C. And then you have function callback, which will be called when the component is loaded. And this is where you will be loading your Lightning component. Now the third and fourth is basically to mention the Lightning endpoint URL and the authentication token or the session ID basically. This is required if you are calling your Lightning component from an external website or from a Heroku app or from a mobile app. If you're externally going to use your Lightning component, these 2 parameters are required. In our case, in our example, it's not required because we are anyways going to call this component within Salesforce, so we don't have to pass any parameters. But just for the purpose of explaining the syntax, I have put it across there. And the second thing that you need to do, so in the lightning.use, when you are writing a function callback, within that you have to call this lightning.create component. This is the method that you're going to use to basically load your Lightning component on your Visualforce page, and it has mainly 4 parameters that you need to pass. The first thing is basically the type, which is nothing but the name of your component. So let's say you have a component name, say account viewer component. Then the parameter here would be C colon account viewer component, which is name of your component. The second one is object attribute. So let's say you want to pass some sort of an attribute, like it could be the label, or it could be just a message. Let's say, for example, let's say you're just going to create a simple lightning button over there. So then you have to then pass the label of the lightning button, right? So that's what you will do in the second parameter. It's not mandatory; it's just an optional attribute. But the first one is mandatory. You need to mention the name of the component. And the third one is basically your DOM locator. So this is very important. DOM locator basically identify where you have to place this component on your Visualforce page. So what you basically do is to create, let's say, a div in your Visualforce page. You put an ID, you give an ID to it. You then have to mention that ID over here as your DOM locator, so that that's exactly where your component will be loaded or will be visible. I can see. Can you guys hear me clearly? Am I on? Okay.
I can hear Shyam.
Okay, fine. I mean, because I'm getting getting a lot of chat saying that my voice is breaking or it's not audible, so that's why I just asked. Sorry to interrupt. Okay, so the last parameter that you see here is basically your function callback, where you can write some function which will be called when your component has loaded. Okay, so that's what it is used for. So that's it. Once this is done, once this is written, your Visualforce page is ready. You just have to place it wherever you want, and your Lightning component will be loaded. Any questions so far?
Yeah. Hi Shyam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. One question regarding lightning.use. We do have 4 parameters, and when we are using this endpoint URI and authentication token in Visualforce,
Okay, so
would you require this?
no, in Visualforce page you don't require it. Okay, but let's say you're going to use this component in an external website, right? Let's say within your SAP system or within your SharePoint site, you're going to call this Lightning component. In that, to basically make a connection with your Salesforce org, you need to mention the Lightning endpoint URL, which is basically your domain URL, and then you have to pass the session ID, so that it makes a connection with your Salesforce and then load the component. So the last 2 parameters is only required when you are basically loading your Lightning component on an external website or on an external application or even in a mobile application.
That means, Shyam, is the syntax same for in external applications as well? This lightning.use methods?
Yes, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
And in case I want to use it in a Visualforce page, I want to use a LWC component or a component in my Visualforce page, which will be available in Classic. Then also I can use the Lightning use, or I will use Lightning create component.
No, you have to use both. The only difference here is that when you're declaring lightning.use method, you don't have to pass the last 2 parameters, which is Lightning endpoint URL and URI and authentication.
What does create component do? I already have a component created, right? I already have a
so
component
you
ready
already
for...
have exactly. So you already have a component created, but you have to basically call that component within your Visualforce page, right? You have to load it. It's just so exactly like how you use iframes, right? Let's say you have a website, you want to or you have an application, you want to call it in within another application, you use iframes, right?
Yes,
Or to
correct.
load
So,
an image, you use iframes. So similarly, in Visualforce page, if you want to load a Lightning component, you need to use this lightning.create component. So what it basically does it creates a component with the name of the component that you have passed, but that component should be already created. So it's called create components. What it exactly doing is basically loading your component on Visualforce page.
yes. And what does type and attributes do here?
So type is basically where you pass the name of the component.
Okay. And
So let's say,
attributes?
your Lightning component name is, let's say, for example, XYZ component, right? So you have to pass the name of the component over here. An attribute basically, let's say you want to pass a label for this. Let's say you have to set the label as XYZ. Or let's say, for example, let's say your Lightning component is basically a Lightning button, which is loading a Lightning button, right? And you want to bring that Lightning button to a Visualforce page. Then you have to pass a label, right, to that Lightning for that Lightning button. So that's what you will mention in the second parameter. It's basically attribute. It could be a label, it could be a style, it could be just a message, right?
Okay.
And it's not mandatory. It's an optional bit over there.
Okay. And how do we pass up some, if I want to pass some parameters from a VF to any LWC or a component, how do we pass it?
No, I didn't understand. What was the question again?
If I want to pass any parameter, any value to my LWC component, how will I pass it?
From a Visualforce page?
Yeah.
No, so that's a different thing. That's a different thing to do.
Okay.
So Lightning out is not used for passing parameters from Visualforce page to Lightning component, which though you can do it if you want to, but mostly Lightning out is used to basically load an existing component on your Visualforce page.
Okay, correct. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Any other questions before I move ahead? Can you guys see my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to give you an overview how this is done. So this is the syntax that will be used. So if you see here, this is a Visualforce page where the first thing that we did is we used Apex :include Lightning to basically load all the JavaScript files necessary to load a Lightning component on VF page. And on the third line, do you see this div? So this is exactly where your Lightning component is going to load. Okay, and the ID will be actually passed as a DOM DOM component to your Lightning component. So now from line 4 to 17 is exactly where you are loading your Lightning. You're writing a script to basically bring your Lightning component to Visualforce page. So the first one that you use is Lightning use, and this is basically the Lightning dependency app that you created, and you're passing the name of it. And on the callback function, you're basically creating the Lightning component. And here, if you see, I'm passing the name of the Lightning component. Second line, I'm not passing any parameters or attributes over here, but as an example, you can see message, account, viewer, LWC. This is just an example of what an attribute can be. And then thirdly, this is where your DOM element, this is where you'll be passing the ID of the div, or basically the location of your Visualforce page where you want to see the Lightning component. And then fourthly, you're writing a small function to a callback function. Basically, if you want to perform any operation after the component is loaded, you can mention it over here. You can write code over here. So this is how it is done. Any questions so far?
Shyam, I have just one question. The attribute that we are passing, can it be of any type here? Or like I'm just trying to understand, can I pass any type of attribute here?
So it can be an attribute which will be which can be understood by Lightning. So it could be label, message. I will share a link to you guys so you can understand what are the attributes that you can pass over here. There is a list of attributes that you can pass. I will share it as a resource so that you can go through it once and understand it better.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions before we move on? Because what we are going to do is we are going to do a demo of what exactly we just learned. So shall we jump on to the demo? If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take it as a yes. So let's do one thing. I will now go back to my Visual Studio Code. Let me know when you guys can see it. And I hope everyone knows how to use Lightning, the Visual Studio Code. If not, I think that will be our next session, Sanket. We can have a session on how to basically use SFDX or Visual Studio Code for development purpose. It's great stuff. It's a great tool. You guys should use it.
Yeah, sure, Shyam.
Yeah. So just a minute, guys. Okay. Now I have already created a project, and it is actually linked to my Salesforce org. Okay, and I've also created some sample Lightning component and LW's Lightning web components already, so that we just thought we don't have to waste any more time on creating them. And since I'm assuming that everybody knows how to basically build a Lightning component, I think then it will be easy for you guys to do it on yourself. So first and foremost thing, let me show you the. So let me show you the Aura component. It's basically Lightning component. I have created a very simple Lightning component, which basically show me the list of accounts that is there in my org. Okay, so so I will be also sharing a Git repo of this particular example, so that you can go through the code once to understand what we have done. So I've just simply created it's a very simple Lightning component. It basically shows a data table with the list of accounts that is there from my Salesforce org, and passing the columns and passing and I'm using an Apex class to basically call all the accounts from my org. So I will also show you the class. Just a minute. So this is my Apex class. Okay, it's basically returning the name and phone number of all the accounts that is there in my org. Okay, so this is the Lightning component that we are going to bring on our Visualforce page. All right, any questions? Okay, now let's go ahead and create a Lightning app. So I'm just going to run this as a PS command to create a Lightning app, and I'm going to name it as account viewer app. And yes, it will be stored under Aura. So it's running the subject command, and yes, we have a app ready. Now, just like how I showed you on the presentation, this is what we have to do. We will be extending it. We are using LTNG out app. So this is basically makes the Lightning application as a Lightning out application. Okay, I'm going to set the access level as global so that it will be accessible everywhere. So, and then within this, I'm going to call my Lightning component. So all I have to do is just pass the name of the Lightning component, C colon account viewer component. That's it. And our Lightning out, Lightning dependency app is basically ready. Any questions? Okay. Now let's go ahead and create a Visualforce page. So let's create a Visualforce page. I'm going to give it as account viewer page. And yes, it is keeping it as default. So now, so let's set some things. We don't need a header. We don't need to show the header. So let me make it as false. We are not going to use the standard style sheet. So let's set this as false. Since you're going to load all the Lightning component style sheets, we don't need this. Now within this, I'm going to call the JavaScript file that is required to load a Lightning component. So that will be apex colon include Lightning. Okay. Now on the fourth line, this is where I'm going to load my table, account table. So I'm just going to mention a div, and I will pass the ID as data table. Okay. Now this is where you're going to write your JavaScript. So the first and foremost thing that you need to do is basically call lightning.use. And over here, you will be calling your Lightning dependency app, which is basically your account viewer app. So I call the name, and then I'm going to call a callback function here. Now within this, I'm going to use lightning.create. So account viewer component. Now this is where you will pass parameters, attributes if you have to, but I'm going to keep it blank for time being. This is where you will pass the name of your DOM. So the DOM location, or the location where you're going to display the Lightning component. So all I have to do is I need to just pass the ID over here, which is data table. And then you can write a callback function. So let's say I'm going to write a console log here saying that my Lightning component is loaded. Okay. So are we done? Do we have anything else to be included? No, I don't think that's it. We're ready. Any questions so far? So your Visualforce page is actually ready now to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my source org. I'm going to open my source org. I'm going to review this Visualforce page. And when I preview it, it should basically display me an account table, which will show the name and phone numbers of the accounts that is there in my org. So if you see most recent reviews, account viewer page, this is the lightning. So this is the Visualforce page that we just created. Yeah, this is the one. And if I preview it, okay, something wrong here. Just a minute, guys. Okay. Syntax error actually. I'm supposed to. Can you guys? What exactly are you seeing at the moment on my screen?
The Visual Studio, you are writing Lightning
okay.
Create.
Okay. So let me show you the preview of my page. Okay, what do you see right now?
Salesforce.
Can you see? Yeah, can you see the Visualforce page? Can you see accounts and phone numbers, account name and phone number listed? Yeah. So this is your Visualforce page. This is basically the preview of your Visualforce page. And what you see here is the Lightning component that we created, and it has just loaded. Okay. Now, if you inspect, if you go to the console, and you can see a message Lightning component is loaded. So this is exactly the log that we passed on the callback function. So it clearly says that there's the right Lightning component that has been loaded. So this is how you do. Any questions? Any doubts so far?
Just one thing. We opened this in Classic, right?
Right.
Or okay.
We opened. So what exactly? Okay. So so what I exactly did is I basically previewed this Visualforce page. So it really doesn't matter whether it's a Lightning or Classic. So if you still have doubts, what I'll do is I'll switch over to my Classic. So right now we are in Salesforce Classic. So if you go to setup, this is the same Visualforce page that we created. And when I preview it, it will load the Lightning component. All right. Any questions?
Just one question, Shyam. Can I? So I'm currently doing a work where I'm creating a Lightning Web component for one of my customers, and now they also want that to be enabled in Classic. I'm just thinking to use the same. Just wanted to know one thing. Can I use a JavaScript button, because that is that particular LWC component is switching on by a quick action. So I'm thinking, can I create a JavaScript button which will call a Visualforce page, and that will display, that will use Lightning out to.
Yeah, so basically what you have to do is you have to create a Lightning component which will have a Lightning button in it. Okay. And when you click that Lightning button, it should basically navigate you to the other Lightning component.
From the JavaScript button, if I click on the JavaScript button, which will open up a Visualforce, basically URL
so
button. Which will...
No. So on-click JavaScript buttons will not work on Visualforce pages.
So
you're talking about an on-click JavaScript button, right?
Yeah, which opens a Visualforce. The URL buttons, basically, when I click on it, it navigates to me to a Visualforce. Will that work?
I really haven't tried
yes.
that. Yeah, I think it should work. You can give it a try. Since your Visualforce page is calling a Lightning component, I think it should work.
Okay, thank you.
You can try that. All you need to do is so in my code. Okay, I think I just have to share my entire desktop. I don't know why I'm not doing that. So if I go back to my code, can you guys see my screen?
You have stopped the sharing, Shyam.
Oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you have a lightning component. Okay, if you see here in my example, I have created a lightning component, which again is basically the same one. It will load the list of accounts from my Salesforce org. I have written an LWC code for that, where I am calling my Apex method and getting all the all the account list, and then passing it to the lightning data table here. Okay, now this is a LWC component, right? Now what you do is same step. You have to go to your dependency app. So here you just have to mention your account view LWC. So this is a component. Okay, this is the component that you're going to refer in this app. Okay, and then on your Visualforce page, under create component, you have to again mention your or call your LWC component here. So then this will basically load the Lightning web component. So what I'll do is I'll also, since to differentiate it, what I'll do is I'll put a LWC message here, so that we know whether it has loaded the right component, whether it has loaded the Lightning component or the LWC component. So now, once it is done, go back to your preview. I'll refresh this. It will load the same table, but this time it is basically an LWC that has been loaded. You see, it's loading Lightning LWC component here. So it's loading a Lightning web component here. It's the same method. It's the same steps. The only difference here is that in your LWC component on your metadata file, you have to keep exposed as true. I think that is pretty much standard. Everybody should know about it. So I'm just telling that. I'm just saying that.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Anything else before we go back to our slides? We're almost at the end of our session. Okay, so before we do that, what I'll do is I'm going to push all these changes to my Git repo, and I will share the link to this repo so that you guys can refer it as a sample app. In case if you have any questions, you can always contact me via Twitter, or you can put your queries on Git so that I can answer them immediately. Okay, so that is done. Let's get back to our slides. Okay, so before there are any questions, any more questions? We are at the we are done actually with our session for the day. So if any questions, any doubts you have, please take this opportunity and ask. If you are shy to talk, you can also put it as a chat.
Wanted to understand how really does these pages work with the mobile app publisher that we have in communities? So if we have a requirement where I'm using a mobile app publisher, there if I want to just push these components, I know it's not just related to Lightning out here, but just trying to understand if you've had some kind of experience with that.
See, I have experience with mobile publishers, but mobile publishers are pretty much straightforward, right? You can directly call your Lightning component on your mobile app.
Right.
You have to use Lightning out. So when I say mobile applications, it's basically mobile applications which are built out of Salesforce. So it could be an Android application, the Android mobile app that you have built, or it could be an or iOS mobile app, or it could be a hybrid, which is built using SDKs, mobile SDKs.
Okay.
In that scenario, if you want to bring a Lightning component over there, then you have to use Lightning.
Okay.
The standard mobile publisher that we have is straightforward. You just have to load your Lightning component directly over there.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I saw one question on chat. Looks like this guy is very shy. He didn't want to ask this question. Naveen Bhaiya, if I'm not parent component, multiple child components, and what we you just have to mention the parent component. If I have answered it for you, Naveen, all we need to do is we need to mention the top level component, which is basically your parent component. But ensure that your Lightning components are visible for all the users. That's all you have to do.
Does anybody have any other question for Shyam?
Yeah. Hi, Shyam. If you're saying you want to use this content outside with
Okay, sorry, I can't hear you. Can you be a little louder?
Yeah. So is it audible?
Yeah.
So Shyam, my question is, if you're saying if you can expose this component or Lightning SMBC resource to the third party, so there should be an endpoint where we need to share, or we can take and call this endpoint, right?
Yeah, so you have to basically create an endpoint, which will you basically create a connected app, which will provide you the endpoint URL and that say on the in the session token. Then you have to pass these URL and session token to your lightning.use method.
Okay. Can you show me like how this endpoint generated and all?
At the moment, I don't have an example, but I think that will be our next session, which we will plan in another 1 or 2 weeks. I will demo how we exactly can call a Lightning component on an external application or a Heroku application.
Okay, great.
So yeah. I will definitely do a demo on that. Unfortunately, since we don't have time, and this will take because I need to create an external application first, and then show you how that works. But that is possible.
Okay. Thank you. No problem.
Yeah. So the intent of this is to give you an understanding how to use Lightning components on a Visualforce. Yeah, I'm damn sure you guys have requirements, or your org is still in Classic. You want to show, you want to give a better UI experience to your customers. This is exactly how you can do. You can create a Lightning component, but you can still create a Visualforce page and load that component on your VF page. When your org is still on Classic. So, yeah. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so yeah, is anyone saying something?
No, it was me. Yeah.
Okay. This of the resources or references or resources that you can use. So if you want to know more about Lightning Out markups, you can go to the first link. The Git repo link is also here, where you have the sample app that we just created. The third one is basically a placeholder. Whatever session that has been recorded, we will provide you a link to that so that you can listen to it later. Sanket, I think this is on you. And of course, this is my blog. It's cloudyhere.com. This is where I have already blogged about this. So there are 2 blogs. One is for LWC, other one is for Lightning component. Please go through them once. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can always reach out to me on Twitter. and Sanket is also here. And as part of Lightning Champion group, we are always happy to help you guys to learn Salesforce Lightning. Thank you guys. Thank you much. Thank you for spending a nice amount of time out of your weekend, or busy weekend, I would say. It's always pleasure to teach you guys or talk to you guys. Thank you, Sanket, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Shyam. Thank you for this session. Everybody, please be safe and enjoy work from home.
Yeah.
Thank you. We will meet on next session.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.